Yeah, I'm gonna go back and edit some of this to take out any dead space or anything might be said that needs to be removed, kind of a thing. But I thought that this information was pressing. I thought this information is huge. That's why I've been trying to be a little vocal about it, but yet it's like no one is hearing me. You heard me? So, SHA 256, right? I'm seeing a lot going on. The Bitcoin Cash halving is tomorrow. Then in about a week and a half or so is the Bitcoin halving. The thing is I have a different perspective being a miner. I'm looking at this and I'm questioning what's going on and why and what's about to go on. I've got only a few different options that I see available, and I think everyone needs to hear this. So share this, if you will. All right, so the Bitcoin Cash halving is tomorrow. It also drops down to 3 1/8 for the block rewards. However, Bitcoin Cash does have real-time difficulty adjustment, which was adopted from Digibyte via DigiShield Multi-Shield. So it does have real-time difficulty adjustment. But if you look at the amount per block that is offered, and then the amount that you're currently earning as a miner, when that gets cut in half, where is the mining going to migrate to? And that's the point of this video. So I'm of the opinion as a miner that if Bitcoin Cash halving cuts my earnings in half as well, because it is not profitable to mine Bitcoin Cash. I understand you're going to have some degens leave their miners in. That's cool. I get that. But I'm speaking to the multi-billion-dollar industry of mining. So they have just say 1,000 miners, and suddenly you have, you're earning $12, and now that gets cut in half to $6. But you multiply that by 1,000 miners. That's $6,000 a month, or a day rather. I'm sorry, a day. $6,000 a day. Now, I mean,
that's a hell of a loss in revenue.
From as a business perspective, because that's what these people do, and that's what those of us who are hobbyist miners do. It is that we will unplug and we will move to a different blockchain. Right now, Digibyte is more profitable to mine than Bitcoin Cash, and also that of Bitcoin. So same thing happens. If Bitcoin Cash experiences this issue, then I think my theory is correct. I think my hypothesis is correct in that the mining will shift and some will migrate quickly into Digibyte, and I believe we have evidence of that. The hash rate of Digibyte has gone up 20 something petahash in short order. So I'm questioning, are other miners doing the same thing as what I'm thinking, and why I feel it's pressing to bring this information to you. Because in that day, when Bitcoin Cash halves tomorrow, the mining of SHA 256, some will migrate to Digibyte, and I believe some will migrate to Bitcoin. But then Bitcoin halving is a week and a half away, roughly. So then what? The same thing happens again, but on a larger scale with Bitcoin. And I think as a miner, I would go to whichever blockchain is profitable. And I think we're going to see a mass inflow of hash rate into Digibyte, being SHA 256. Because as a miner, the only other coin out there that is profitable to mine is Peercoin. And I I think we're about to see fireworks in the next 2 weeks, over the next 2 weeks. What do y'all think?
I don't think you need to edit this.
I think I obviously can't speak to the mining like you can, Dave. It's kind of your wheelhouse, but from a chart standpoint, I think it makes sense. Digibyte's already started raising off of its bottom, and it really doesn't slow down too much when it starts that process. We've seen a lot of 2017 coins kind of lift up off the bottom, and we were talking about the valuation of Digibyte and Sats, and it's basically a bunch of coins across the board from 2017 have been in that scenario, right? A lot of altcoins from then never reached to all-time highs in 2020, 2021. So, if you looked at the Bollinger Bands and you pull it together, you'd see compression. Digibyte moves very sporadically, very exponentially, right? So it's already kind of like shown that, that time of compression is closer to the end than it is to the beginning. And you adding that narrative towards, regarding the mining, I think adds a good catalyst. It would make a lot of sense, right? Because we saw something like this happen with Ethereum Classic. When Ethereum Classic, all its miners dropped its support, it fell down to like very, very lows. That's actually when I bought into Ethereum Classic. And then all of a sudden, POS Ethereum comes along, and then all the miners switch over to ETC, and then ETC went from $6 to like 120. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen verbatim right here, but we can look at the past and try to extrapolate a similar situation. So I think that has the potential, if it does get a lot of mining support, historically speaking, the price increases dramatically. So yeah.
Good points. I like to add an angle from a legal point of view. In Europe, we have the MiCA regulation, which has a passage in regards to stablecoins that will become mandatory by the 1st of June. And I have very reason to believe that I think the EU and the US are working in a tandem when it concerns legislation for digital assets. So I think
Mark
that
Warner.
the US won't be too far. Yeah, Mark Warner. I don't think the US will be too far behind. I think actually they will they're usually only one day behind or in front. So they work really fast. And I think today we saw the news coming out about an hour or 6 hours ago that Tether has been linked to funding Russian terrorists daily for a large period of time now. And they basically covered it themselves, that they announced that they're going to do the most elaborate audit ever in order to bury the news. But Tether isn't backed by any good assets, any real hard assets. And the only real hard assets it's backed by is 23% of Chinese real estate in Evergrande that basically went to shit. So that's not going to do anything. And I think not too long from tomorrow with the halving, 3rd of April, probably around 16th of April, we have the halving of Bitcoin. And then the 1st of June, which is not too far from that, we get like the first real hit of legislation in crypto space. We're going to see it being enforced. We saw it in December last year with Tether and also with CZ of Binance getting arrested. We see the sentence of 25 years for Sam Bankman-Fried. We will, I think, see a lot of fraud being cut out of the space as a lot of money enters, and this thing has to mature and has to have a proper legal framework in order to be innovative for society. Otherwise, it doesn't function. And if you create a legal framework for society for a new asset class or a new invention or technology, there has to be enforcement. And so far, we've seen that happens with Interpol. They do that globally, and they do that very diligently. They're right on top of it so far. They haven't dropped the ball at any single person. Make of it what you want, if you like the legislation or not, but they're taking it very seriously. And then after that, after stablecoins probably liquidate in September, October, you will have the whole rodeo again, but this time for exchanges. that have to have mandatory good behavior. They cannot be market makers anymore. Actually, they have to turn into watchtowers. They're obligated to basically pass any suspicious financial behavior within 3 hours to the authorities, or they're going to be seen as complicit, and they have to shut down. Not a lot of exchanges globally are compliant, and I think if you look at that from that angle, what will happen is a ripple effect throughout the whole crypto space, where every single founder or creator of a token or coin, plus every single exchange within the next few months, will just receive emails. Are you compliant? Yes or no? And I think many people will probably, if they own a token and they're not compliant, they have like 50 to 80 to 90% of those tokens, they will just rug it. They'll sell it and move to what they think is safe, which I think is going to be Bitcoin, probably Monero. And that will probably also add on top of what you said with the hash rate. And why I think that's relevant is I think that you will probably see, out of the 25,000 projects in blockchain, I think you would be happy if you have 250 left. I think 99% will die in the next couple of months. And that will be an inflow of money as well into compliant coins. I think the age of shit coins and meme coins, it won't last super long. Maybe a short cycle, they'll get it. But I think this will be one of the last moments we'll see this. And yeah, to add that on top of that, I think that once legislation hits, fundamentals, whether we like it or not, will start to matter, because that's where actual product can be made. That's where adoption from like corporations and S&P 500s can be made. That's where BlackRock wants to dump it eventually, because that they have to sell it, and those S&P 500 companies will sell it to retail again in the future. And they can only build it if it's compliant, globally compliant. Otherwise, it's not possible.
See, I agree with you in terms of this will be the last cycle we see kind of like this unbridled meme frenzy, but we're a little, I do disagree on the timing. You know, I think they will exist until the end of the cycle, like in terms of pumping, right? And then
But
like
you won't be able to buy them. They're
I mean,
illegal to have.
how do you stop it on dexes though?
That's a good point. Dexes aren't really yet under. That's a good point. Dexes aren't yet under supervision, so to speak, of like, under the legislation of this particular version of MiCA. There's a 2.1 coming up that's dealing with Dexes. So yeah, for now that could work. But I think many people in retail that aren't paying attention, that are new, like that entered in 21 or even maybe in the last couple of months or weeks, they won't be savvy enough to do that. They'll just be holding their Pepe or Dog with hat back. They'll be the exit liquidity. I still think only a few people, once the rugging starts, like only a few people have to get scared and sell their shit. Everyone's underwater.
Yeah,
You
but
get this snowball.
you can't even regulate dexes if they're adequately decentralized. Who do you send a letter to? And that's the point of dexes. And
I know.
so like I think that
But do you think
that,
all the DEXs will be able and capable to basically soak in the entire traffic of all the exchanges?
well, I mean, it's just a matter of liquidity, right?
Can they
So
handle it with their server load?
I don't see why not. It just is a matter of resources, right? And like these centralized exchanges, like some of them are shady too. Like they're not exactly
No,
up
of
and
course.
up compliant guys. Like KuCoin just got hit with like potential money laundering. Sam Bankman-Fried, about him. So like, well, one thing that's good with like crypto, and because it's so liquid, it moves around really fast and it goes places you don't like. Like look at Sam Bankman-Fried. The whole theory about him being a revolving door for. Because I want
Yeah.
I want Dave to use the video, but yeah, I mean, and I can't confirm or deny that. But what I'm
No,
all
it's
I'm
just
saying is,
on-chain proof.
hey, you can decide, guys. It's on chain. But what I'm trying to
Yeah.
say is, yeah, it will come out, right? Just like Reggie Middleton sent letters to exchanges, but they're still operating. I think there'll be like a lag effect, right? Because it's
Do
gonna
you
be a
really
big
think
job, man.
so?
Yeah.
Do you know why? Do you know why I think that will probably happen a lot quicker and more adequately? Is like you said earlier, we're going to get like digital identities and CBDCs. I think around May next year. That's where I expect it, based on the projects that I see. That then we'll cease this to have funding. So the government funding stops in April 25. And in May 25, they need to be operable, stand on their own legs, and be profitable. So their product needs to be ready, done, and they need adoption. So I think that, and that kind of works with the timeline for Fed now as well. So I don't think there's a lot of time basically. And if
No,
I see the
I'm not
right,
saying the
so
cycle's gonna be long. You know, I'm not saying like it's gonna go into 2025. I'm saying like like I have base cases like October, up into October. And I don't know, like, you know, things are decorrelating. I don't know if every single meme coin or altcoin will be peaking at that time, because things have kind of like moved. In 2017, everything went up and down at the same time. 2021, it kind of changed, you know? But what I'm saying is they bring it down because everything has to collapse. There has to be no liquidity for you to take a CBDC. There can't be like any other alternative, you know? So it just makes sense that like they bring everything down together. Then they issue the CBDC, and then they can reinflate the things they want. But
Well,
that's just
yeah,
me.
I agree.
Yeah.
here's another
Not your keys,
thought
not your
that gets
coins.
into your point. Here's another thought that gets into your point. So right now we see the Department of Justice moving $2 billion into Coinbase. My question is, did BlackRock need liquidity? Because right now the BlackRock is sourcing 10,000 Bitcoin per day. And right now there's only 900 Bitcoin minted per day. And in less than 2 weeks, it drops down to 450 Bitcoin per day.
Bitcoin
So,
will explode before the CBDC.
so my question is, with BlackRock and the Department of Justice from Silk Road, is that the way that they're going to try to manipulate the market? I think so. But here
Yeah.
again, with the hash dropping off a cliff, if they try, and this goes into also quantum computing.
Go to congestion first, Dave.
Well, the congestion. Okay, so I, the 5 mining algorithms at DigiByte can run on 4 if one is corrupted, say SHA-256. If it is one day, now with AI right around the corner and quantum, and it working with quantum computing on SHA-256, I think it's a matter of time. And to what you were saying a moment ago, if they allow the blow off top this cycle, is that the way they crush the market this next run? Because additionally, into quantum computing, when the switch is flipped, you immediately eliminate all ASICs. Think about that. So now you control the blockchain. Now you control those blocks going into the future of what you want them to do. And with a 2-week difficulty adjustment, no one will be able to keep up. You won't know the day or the hour. It's just the next block will not be solved. It'll just stop at that point. So in that instance of quantum computing, I can do a few things. I can either stop the blockchain, or I can control the rewards until the year 2159 if I were intelligence. So what other blockchain has the ability to be adaptable to replace an algorithm. And I think that that is where Digibyte will be huge in the future, in possibly the not too distant future, in that there's an algorithm, is something crystal, I forget what it was, but
Crystal is the lithium.
okay, so that one to replace
Crystal is the lithium. Sorry. Yeah, but it's only for signing. But yeah,
I'm just
that's
saying,
true.
as a thought, right? To be quantum resistant, because I don't believe in proof. This is just computer code, and this is just Moore's law. So
Yeah, that's
I think
an
these are
interesting
the
angle.
days. I think these are the days that we're soon to go into, and we're
I
gonna know. I
agree.
think the next 2 weeks are gonna be fireworks. But the moment that quantum computing becomes an issue or becomes a thing, people need to be led aware of that. In my opinion, that was the first thing I ever told Jared was, thank you for fixing the vulnerabilities of Bitcoin. I meant
Right.
that.
Well, one of the things that I want to add to that is what we see happening now in AI, especially in generative AI, is we see a massive increase in the usability. Like it's accelerating rapidly in the last 6 months. What we have seen with new versions of ChatGPT, but also Grok, also Gemini, and I know there's a lot of like political discourse right now and funny memes, but the technology is very very apparent for companies that work in tech that use this. They realize the true potential that if you use it as a tool, that it can really accelerate things, and it's not perfect yet, but it's being used more and more by corporations. They adopt it, and then you see companies like Dell, and you see companies like Hewlett Packard and Intel, basically embracing AI. Also with Nvidia, they work together. They create hardware solutions for corporations to use this. This is already happening at the end of this year, like that you see more of the increase in use there. So it will be funded, throughout the entire IT infrastructure. Like, it's such a large push for AI right now. Also to get those chips out there. There's going to be a lot of money into hardware to make things faster and faster and faster. And just like Dub said, that Google showed their quantum computer, it was 1,000 times faster. We'll eventually go to 1,000,000 times faster. And Moore's law was like a doubling every 2 years. And all of a sudden we get this ramp off of 1,000,000. And people don't think it will be disruptive, let alone what the output of the AI will be. But like from a blockchain perspective, it will completely punch the shit out of SHA-256. I mean,
It's
right
a
now
flip of a light switch. That's basically what it will be.
that's basically it. Yeah, right now it takes about 4,000, what was it, 4,000 years even to break certain passwords with like normal computers, and with quantum it will be a fraction of a second. It's like it's a complete different ball game, the power that's behind it. So if you have, just to end it, if you're like your average Joe mining farm, and all of a sudden BlackRock splashes the cash and just buys this shit for 650,000 a piece, or even several millions, like how many companies can just spend, especially when liquidity drains the market, can just decide to put 1 billion into quantum computers and run their own mining rig? Who the fuck's going to compete with that? Not a
And then
lot.
in that
I,
day, where does that mining migrate? That's my question.
so like I'll tell a little story, right? So when I got Bitcoin in 2013, I just put on my seed, like my seed phrase, like, well, I guess you'd say my private key on encrypted CD. I forgot a couple like letters in my password, so it was a problem. I hit up one of my friends, and he's like, "Do you know any of the password?" Like, I knew like 80% of it, so I was able to crack it in like no time. But typically, it takes like it's impossible because the way like traditional computers run is they try one after next, this combination after this, like sequentially. Quantum computers try them all at the same time.
At time, yeah.
It's the difference of
It's not 1 and 0, but it's also 0, 0 and 1, 1.
it's
Yeah.
the next difference of going from a mechanical hard drive to a solid state. So basically, you're
Yeah.
taking several different platters and it being able to have to go to each platter and then read. Okay. Instead of that, it puts it all on one field. So that way the information is immediate
And it's
instead of having to search for it.
yeah, it's wild. So like, you know, that means people could like try to crack your encryption. Like you can crack encryption
Yeah, but
way
also
easier.
think about like the adoption will be so huge because we see ChatGPT, like OpenAI, they increased their funding with ChatGPT 3.5. It was like 10 million. And then they moved to 100 million and they got ChatGPT 3.5, 4. And then he did a little bit around, Sam Altman did a little bit of around, around Silicon Valley, got a few more investors, took over, got booted out, took it over again. And now they're pumping in 1 billion. And every time they add a zero of like computing power, this AI does new shit. Like it just does, it just has its own agency because it has its own intelligence. It just creates new shit. And we don't know what it is, what it will create. Now we have like this Sora where we can do a search prompt and you get one search prompt and you get 3 minutes of video, like fucking phenomenal video with whatever you searched for. And you just get that immediately. And then that's with the current value. And that's going to increase like in monetary way, but also like the computing power behind it is going to be fucking huge. So corporations will adopt this, but they need, from like a cybersecurity point of view, they need a don't trust but verify security. And the only thing that can do that is built for it, is a proof of work UTXO. It's built for don't trust verify. You cannot let this run on a proof of stake. You need hash rate against it to compete with it. It needs to be secured because everyone's going to use it. And it's just it. I think there's not a lot of projects out there that will be able to handle that. And I think there's your incentive. Like, and it might not be this cycle. It might be at the end of like maybe the beginning of 2025 that where it will start and it will run into that like in 2029. But I do think we're already going to see it happening. And I think the beginning already will be difficult to keep up with.
Well, they say software is eating software, right? So like now we don't have to do anything. You have the AI mind to just iterate and reiterate and never take a break and reiterate and just build on it and build on it. Like I don't think people really we're starting to go this exponential phase of technology where it's gonna get really freaking weird. I don't think people understand. Like I think now we're like entering the Terminator, the precursor to Terminator technology. Like, like when Arnold's running around and you saw these like things moving by themselves, like we're starting to see the archaic like versions of those in restaurants. But like soon they have the AI mind and they're gonna put it in the AI body. And like the software can eat the software, but wait until the software and like controls hardware that builds its own hardware. Like we're gonna get to that point where it's just gonna go even faster.
Yeah.
So I think what I'm trying to get at stake is we might not be able to see it now, but a year from now, 2 years from now is like 20 years. 50 years to robots. So like
it's a hyperbole, the acceleration.
It's just gonna pick up.
It increases upon itself.
Yeah. So like I think it's gonna be upon us sooner than people think. I mean, it's exponential in its growth, just like Bitcoin. Bitcoin rises up faster than people think. It's all
but I think if you have this digital infrastructure for all of this, you're going to need digital currency, and you're going to need at least digital protection. You're going to need to secure this, and I think if you look at projects right now, and I think you would agree, and maybe we're rooting for Digibyte because we're looking through it with rose-tinted glasses for a long time now, but even if you would not take it from that angle, there's not a lot of projects out there in blockchain that do this, that are capable to handle this. Like that, there's not a lot that have the fundamentals in order to just say, okay, I'll try to be able to do that. Is Bitcoin fast enough for it? Is it secure enough? How many blockchains have more than one algorithm in case you need more than one?
Verge.
Like, yeah, but not a lot. Not a lot.
See, I don't know, right? So you guys help me out. There's been claims that the other non-blockchain techs, and there's a few of them out there, right? Like I think Aptos is one, uh, Hashgraph
Hyperledger.
and Tangle Hyperledger. I'm not like I don't know enough to know if that's true or not. But like I'll tell you that they're probably trying to push people into a technology that is somewhat resistant to it. But I think, because there's so much infrastructure built around the current algorithms, and like I think Digibyte with its multi-algo and multi hardware capability, it could kind of like suck that power up so it can't just do nothing, right? Like flick of the switch, not all of it's obsolete. They could switch, they could like pivot into at least a coin so that hardware isn't useless. And I think that's what happens with a lot of coins, right? Like when ETH went POS, boop, ETC. So like I think that will be the saving grace for Digibyte because it's so resilient in terms of how it can adapt. But
Yeah, I agree, but I think it's to bring it back, like to Dave's original point. If we have the Bitcoin Cash halving tomorrow, like we're seeing disruption already. Like this shit is breaking
We're
out.
already seeing hash rate increase on Digibyte. So the
Yeah,
miners are
yeah.
migrating now.
I mean, we're so close to just go fucking nuts, and I think that'll have an effect on people's emotional state as well. I think we're going to see a massive increase of mania once the price goes up, and that will be interesting to witness.
well, I mean,
Eventually, most people just follow the wallet.
I mean, it was in 2017 in March, it was 0.002 cents, right? Then all-time high, I mean, Dave, it went to 12 cents. So that's like a lot. I don't know what that is. I didn't do the math.
Well, I thought it was like 14 cents, but I remember it was
around there.
280x.
I thought it was
in
18
2017.
at a certain point.
Well, that was in 21, yes. In 21,
21, yeah,
Digibyte
not in
touched 18
17. No,
cents.
you're right.
But I think
I'm
it
ju-
touched 14 cents in 17.
So that's 600x. And the reason I'm saying 2017 is because I think that was the last time we got a real influx of liquidity. Like 2020 we didn't get a mania. But I think go ahead.
And here again, today is a much different day than 2017. Back then, we had to know Control C to copy, Control V to paste. We didn't have easy access to do different things. We didn't have all these apps. We didn't have all the on and off ramps.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
And we didn't have ETFs and all of this coming. And so
basically, I've been calculating, if you look at that 600x, which you have in at 17, and you spoke earlier about a 280x in 21, Dave. And if you put that on this
I had a
cycle,
280. I had a
280x,
280x
you had it
in 17
right.
in Digibyte, and then I had a 51x in Digibyte in 21.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Good that you mentioned that. I don't want to put you personally on the spot, but I was more referencing towards like a price point for this cycle. Like if it was at its low, like a third of a penny approximately. So if you would do even a 200 to a 600x on that, then where would you go, right? So you would go to what? A third of a penny. It could go to, God, I'm high as shit.
Total speculation, but yeah, I
60
would
cents
take
times 2 is 120. So it could go between $1.20 to $3.80, $3.60, and then that's just based on past behavior of the past cycles, and then we're not even talking about congestion or quantum or whatever, and we're not even talking about the hash rate moving too much. So potentially, and if there's more mania surrounding it,
yes.
potentially you could have like FOMO, where it's a time to shine for Digibyte finally. It could well even
Well,
it could go bonkers.
the congestion slows down the blocks, which is why I think possibly after the halving you'll see 6-hour blocks in Bitcoin again.
especially with what you said with BlackRock running possibly out of liquidity. There will be massive congestion there.
So, and again, you know, in 2017, I personally paid $50 a transaction. And that's when the congestion hits, panic to own, all of that at the same time. A repeat of 2017, I don't know what the transactions would get to, but you also slow down the chain. Okay, think of it this way. Whenever, like, say, whenever you look at hash, that's the purpose of DigiShield multi-shield, is that when you look at the hash and it's either a huge increase, like an entire pool switching blockchains, right? That was the purpose. That's how Doge was shut down in 2014, was by pools jumping from chain to chain and mining it and just ruling the chain, and it would shut down the blockchain. Well, I see the same thing can happen again. And in a day of congestion like that, and for that to happen to compound it, could the blockchain shut down again? I think it could, because it has a 2-week difficulty adjustment. So there's a lot that can happen and in short order. And I just see the miners as just unplugging and migrating to whatever is profitable, because they have to pay the electricity.
So a lot of what ifs, but we're already seeing a small breakout on this narrative. So that's kind of like, exciting.
Yeah, I think this next alt season is gonna be different than the others in the sense that on the chart, if you watch my videos, like I talk about how this looks a lot like the two-phased move up in 2013. Like it's just over a long time frame because there's a huge market cap now. Like it takes longer to move it. But there was almost no altcoins in 2013. We don't know what, like if Bitcoin moves like 2013 at the last phase, very straight up, it's different than 2017. Everyone's modeling the move based off 2017, but the
Yes.
actual structure of the chart looks like 2013. And 2013 was dramatic. Most people weren't in the space, but like we've never seen an altcoin season when Bitcoin's moving like an altcoin, like vertical,
So
so
are we going to see? Yeah, because based on what we hear from like the big boys, the sailors and the Max Kaisers, and they speak to Jeff Bezos and they speak to Bill Ackman, and they get these people from BlackRock, Larry Fink, to talk about it. They're not talking about throwing $1,000 in there. I mean, we're talking about B's and T's, and that could we potentially get like prominent speakers that are not really prone to like the mania normally, that would say, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if we would go over $1 million Bitcoin,
I've already
easily.
heard that.
Kathy Woods.
I've already heard that narrative.
Yeah, right. Of course, of course,
Coming back,
but like
it's coming back
it
already.
could go faster than I actually think if we see this happening now, and with like the coins moving from Coinbase, but maybe that won't even be enough. Maybe that will be eaten up, and I think it will be eaten up. Like Grayscale's coins will all be, on average, with the outflow, will all be bought up by exactly the point of the halving.
Well, Dave, would you
So
let me share a chart?
Yeah.
I want to show you the Bitcoin chart that I typically show, just to show everyone
cool.
that I think it's hilarious that this FUD is coming out right here, because there's always a drop right here, right? So
I can't see the chart yet.
no,
I
I'm
can't
trying to
either.
pull it up. I'm trying to pull it up. My bad.
Oh, all right. Sorry.
Bitcoin USD.
I thought you were already working on it.
Shoot, BTC USD. But yeah, like, hold on. I'll let you know when I have it up. USD Bitstamp, and I'll share it. But yeah, like, it's funny because it's just so on time. And I will share it right here. Entire screen. Okay. Can you guys see it?
Not yet for me.
Not yet.
Can you, Dave?
Oh,
There
you
we
have
go.
to add
Yes,
it in.
we can now. Yeah, got it.
Okay.
Thank you. Great chart.
Thanks. So I just, this is just a fib channel, whatever. It doesn't really matter. All you need to look at, I guess month would be better. All you need to look at is prior all-time high to breakout. Prior all-time high to breakout. I put red squares every point in the breakout. If you just look at it, you can obviously see the chop in 2017 when we get to the all-time high. There's
Right.
a drawdown of about 30%. We're starting to drop right now. A bunch of Bitcoin from the US government, it hasn't moved in forever, is heading over to the market. That's funny. Right at the exact breakout. It happened here again in 2018, the high of 2018 to the breakout of 2021. We have to go on the weekly to see that because it was like, not as dramatic of the drop, but you can see it. It's like there's a drop here. That's about 20%. We always have this chop right here. It'd be funny, like Dave said, that BlackRock wants to go get some liquidity from some coins that haven't moved in forever. All of a sudden, they move right at this point. Why would they want more liquidity? Because they know Bitcoin's going to go higher. Bitcoin always goes higher right after the breakout, right? And since I have this up, I'll pull up what I'm thinking about 2013 versus now. It's not exact, but this is the 2013. Go up, go down for about 6 months, then a really euphoric move up. I believe this is just a much larger version of this. That's why I'm thinking, instead of assuming like everyone does that 2017, this long stair step up, very consistent. That was the most consistent Bitcoin cycle we ever had. We've never had one but like that before. They're usually straight up, right? And when you look at it, one impulse, come down, bowl shape, shoot up. One impulse, come down, bowl shape, shoot up. So when things look like this, they don't typically go very linear upwards. They go parabolically upwards.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll say it this way. Price either needs to go
So-
up or mining will migrate.
So what if it hits the same Fibonacci as in 2013? What would the price be if you do that right now?
So I'm not expecting that. I'll show you why. But if I did that, I mean, I have to bring it down.
Present day.
It's crazy. That would be almost 3,000% up. It's 2 million a coin. But if you
2 million a
notice,
coin. I don't think it's that crazy.
no. But if you see this though, look, 2013 it went to the one. 2020, 2018 it went to like almost the one, in between the 1 and the 0.786. 2021 it went up to the 0.618. Right, so you see
And
that
now it would go.
it's going
one
down. I think it's gonna go to the 0.382. And I
Not
don't know
the
if you know-
0.0, not the 0.5.
Well, look, it's the diminishing has been not like very I'm trying to account for like the diminishing of the pumps up, right? So I've noticed
Okay.
between each cycle it's going down. Like this was half the integral, right? This was a little more.
Right.
This was 1.5. So I'm trying to take like that into account, So basically, I don't know if you guys follow Bob Lucas. He's great. But he talks about larger cycles, right? We always look at the 4-year cycle, but he says there's like cycles beyond that. And as we see this channel falling down in the fib levels, right? At some point, it's going to approach a bigger kind of cycle where you have something like the .com bust, right? That was the first time the internet really experienced a big shakeout. And Steak, you're talking about a shakeout, right? A shakeout of some sort. That would make a lot of sense to me. It'd be like the time to wipe everything clean. That's what, dog.com didn't stay around after the .com bubble.
Exactly. Because of, and I think compliance is the key factor there. I think it's legislation.
Yeah. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen, but that's what I'm seeing from a standpoint of like, I think this thing might come fast. It might come fast, and everyone's saying into 2025, and I'm not sold.
Well,
I'm gonna.
and
I think
yet
it's-
again,
I think it's
right now we're at a crossroads. So it's either the price is going to go parabolic and in short order, or the mining is going to migrate. It's either or.
And we got an eclipse coming up to get even weirder. But like,
I'm not in the hocus pocus, man.
hey man, look, there's a lot of things happening this year that are very significant.
If it works for you, great. I'm happy. But
But like besides even that, right? Like election year, having interest rates signaling to come down. It's all kind of like lining up, for an environment where risk assets could do well. But we all know it's like not sustainable because the economy itself isn't that great. It's like anemic, So this is what happened in the Great Depression, right before the Great Depression, right? Everything ran up and then everyone got trapped into it. So.
And at that value, what would be the, well, value doesn't determine the cost of a transaction, it's the congestion. So if the value of Bitcoin did go parabolic like that, of course, during the mad dash and whatnot, yes, the transactions would be crazy, but
I think I'm going to add something. It's going to be crazier than you think. Because if Bitcoin takes over the dollar as the reserve currency, they're just going to make the price whatever it needs to be.
Well, see, Steak, here's the thing. I mean, if the Bitcoin becomes world reserve currency, then what does that mean for their CBDC? They want the CBDC to maintain power, right?
they want control.
You really think that apart from a small percentage of global population that's in crypto, that the rest will be able to enter? They'll buy an IOU. They won't be able to buy the real shit. We get the premium.
What if there's multiple reserve assets? I think
that can happen.
I think BRICS are like, we don't want to do this one thing anymore. Like, we're not gonna get sanctioned. We're gonna have a basket.
I agree.
We're gonna have Ethereum.
I think it's gonna be a little gold, a little silver, a little platinum, a little Bitcoin,
diversify.
Just a basket
of goods, a proof of work.
A little this, a little that. I think if the world learned one thing, it's not to get too dependent on anything. Because
that's a good point of view.
Either way, I think the next 2 weeks will be memorable.
I'll be retweeting as much as I always did, and I'll just be following the news. And like Dub said, yeah, things are aligning. Like
follow the hash rate.
It's also interesting. Yeah, but if you just look at like the narratives on a macro economy, whether that's pension funds or labor markets or bond market or whether you look into real estate, like everyone is seeing it. Like the writings are on the wall all across the board. Stock buybacks, and then look at the geopolitical situation that we have, and then we have an election year where the Fed doesn't really want to intervene by cutting rates because that would be good for the sitting president, and they're not supposed to be political. But we can bet that after 5th of November, right? You guys go vote. Some shit will suddenly break, whether that's Biden or Trump. They'll probably be like, yeah, we waited long enough. This shit's going to come out now. And I think that will probably be the gunshot for the blow off top. That will be the starting gunshot, after the election. Things will crumble. People will flee to quality assets, even more than they already do. And then at what price will they be buying Bitcoin? Well, they'll be buying it at a price much higher than where BlackRock bought it.
Yet again, BlackRock does have the money to pay for a quantum computer. And if they wanted to be that of intelligence and to control Bitcoin, they could immediately make every ASIC obsolete and mine it into the future until 2159.
Sure, but
And
like
then they
it's not
have
only
control. Then they have control of all the new coins. Yes, they'll be selling you a derivative. I agree with that.
no. I'll do you one better with having the money. They actually own the stock in the companies that have quantum computing. They own the company. They
That's what I'm
decide.
saying.
Like it's not only the money, they own it. You know, it's theirs. I mean, they already cornered that market. The only reason why we're lucky in crypto and Bitcoin is because we cornered the market before they came. That's
Right.
unprecedented. That's the reason why we have such crazy jumps up. That's how early we still are.
It'd be interesting to see, like, how many mining operations BlackRock has funded, and how many mining operations took on debt. Because Dave, I told you about that great taking book, right? Collapse everything, don't save it.
Phenomenal.
Then they just suck it in, right? It's theirs now, because
Well, that's what I'm thinking. If we have a blow off top in 25, just say maybe 24, whatever.
Mhm.
If we have that blow off top, how do they crush the market? They crush the market, I think, by AI working with quantum computing on SHA-256. I think that's how they do it. That's
Or
why I
maybe
said I think this is huge, and no one's discussing it.
or maybe derivatives. I mean, like, there's so many ways, right? That's why it's so confusing. You could look anywhere and be like, oh, they could take it down here. They could take it down here. Like, it's so hard to protect from, because there's so many possible ways.
Well, and like the stake said, April of next year, the exchanges either have to comply or go away. And at that point, how do you acquire more coin? And I think in a day of $2 million Bitcoin, if that is a thing, I don't think you'll be able to buy a miner. I think I think that I've seen every cycle the prices of miners 5x, and I think it will do the same, if not more. But yet again, I don't think that. I think even the old miners will be unobtainable.
They'll be in the museum.
No, they'll be running.
No, I'm just
Yeah,
kidding, man.
they might not make a lot, but like, if no one can get it, it's going to be very, very expensive each whatever you mine, right? If people can't buy
Yeah,
it,
of course.
they want it. Yeah.
But if I were intelligence, how would I combat that? I would go after all the ASICs. I would go after a quantum computer to do such a
Well,
thing.
that's why the U.S. government didn't want the Dutch government selling ASML tech to China. You know, it's that simple.
Well,
It's
could
the
they stop it?
national. Yeah, the Dutch complied.
Could they stop it by implementing a digital ID to access the internet?
Well, I'll do you one better. That's even more dystopian than that. You'll have 15-minute cities if it's up to the WEF. It's on their website. And that means that you're geographically bound to 15 minutes of your location where you live, and you're not able to interact with anything digitally past that 15 minutes unless something.
I mean, do you have to live there? How are they going to trap you in there?
Well, it's just your digital identity will be tied to your location, to your house. So you won't have commutes anymore. Everything will be within 15-minute cities. That's their way of cutting carbon footprints. That whole environmental nonsense that they lay upon us.
Yeah, like, because I'm with Dave with, like, I don't think they'll be accessible, like, mining hardware, and it's probably good to pick up. Just the one
Yeah, I
thing I'm
went a
trying
little
to
bit
think out,
overboard there, but
no
yeah.
problem, but, like, the one thing I'm trying to think about, Dave, is, can they stop you from accessing the internet? Because you still need the internet.
They shut down the internet. They have bigger problems.
I actually think that they're going to recode the whole internet. And I think we're going to see, but that's not finished now, but I think we're going to see a whole new infrastructure, because the current internet isn't designed to deal with this way of traffic. It's designed to read, not to read and edit, let alone read, edit, and own tokens. That TCP over IP protocol is just not suited for it. So will they? I don't know. Will they combine TCP protocol with like a proof of work UTXO? Will it be encrypted on the actual protocol level?
Should be.
I don't know. Can it handle that? Can it scale? And then then it can definitely be tied to anything. And I also think that actually the invention of AI calls for it, because it's tailor-made material to you. So it has to have your parameters. It has to have you as a person in an identity, and then you'll have to be able to say, I opt out or not, unless our rights will be violated, which is what it looks like, of course. But from a utopian point of view, we do our best, to protect the citizens. But hopefully we'll make it. If not, we're going to be all dopamine addicts to the max. If you think social media is bad, wait till you see social media with AI.
My thought was going to a different form of cable, like that of, I forget what Cliff Hyatt said, but it's like two different materials. I don't know, is it copper and lead bound?
LD99?
Yes, thank you.
What was that?
I
That
question
superconductor?
Yes. So how much data can flow through that?
It's a massive increase of electricity, because it doesn't. How do you say that? What's the technical term? Entropy. It has no entropy, or hardly any. And right now, there's a lot of entropy when you send out electrical signals. So you basically don't lose that energy anymore in the system. So if that's true, and that has been debunked so far, but they did make tests that were pretty solid and came close, but not as good as the original. So there seems to be something there, but they haven't proved it. So it was debunked eventually. But if something could be real, that's a major. That's on the level of the transistor. That's huge, absolutely mind-boggling tech.
Moore's Law.
Yeah, there's a lot of shit happening, and it's all coming at the same time. It's a really fucking interesting year. So either we bottom out on geopolitical affairs, or we're going to get a World War III. What do you think? Is the bottom in?
I think it is. I mean, could it bounce a little bit? I think it's going to be choppy water over the next 2 weeks, but I think it could also be explosive for some.
Yeah. Well, if I look at the food industry, they're prepared to make us all vegetarians. So, they think they can push down society a little bit more. So maybe not. I don't know. I like to eat steak.
I'm running to the restroom. I'll be right back.
Sure.
Yeah, man. I mean, in regards to the Digibyte angle, you guys are the subject matters there. It's just mainly, the macroeconomic thing. I just see,
Have you ever looked into sovereign edge EU?
Mm-mm.
Right. So it's kind of interesting also for this video, I guess. There is a actual Web3 project out there called Freefold, TFT, and it's designing a decentralized new internet based on several blockchains. And I believe the only proof of work UTXO blockchain that they use is Digibyte. So if you want to have like data or media sent online that is in need of being fully encrypted, that wouldn't be your family recipes or your family photos, because that's totally unnecessary to put proof of work against that. But it would be, for example, something in regards to your credentials, your birth certificate, your identity, your driver's license, your mortgage, your pension fund, whatever, your medical file.
Mm-hmm.
All those things, you don't want that to just, be able to be accessible on the street. It's privacy related, and it's information. Also, when you're driving an electrical car, you don't want it to be hacked and just driven off the road. So you want those systems secure. And
Yeah.
if you look at that at Freefold, then Sovereign Edge EU is a website, and it's been online for a few years now. And it's a collaboration of very big prominent software and hardware parties in Europe to create things for the digital infrastructure of the digital identity and the digital wallet of the EU. And it is funded by a 1 billion euro grant of the European Union, the European Commission. So it's actually in the law. It ties directly back to that grant. Now, they build 6 software applications for their wallet. And one of them is called Meta OS, and there's another one called Nebula OS. And Nebula OS used to be called Meta OS, is a collaboration by Open Nebula and Freefold. And it also works with DigiCorp Labs and Digibyte, and I think DigiID is tied into it. And then you look at okay, so which company is there more involved? And there's like different projects like Project Horizon, Project Eclipse, you can Google on in regards to the EU, the EID, EIDAS, which are the abbreviations for that. And it's very prominent. And it's the only blockchain related project I've been able to find in relation to CBDCs and digital identity in Europe. And then if you look at DigiCorp Labs that was doing that collaboration, in particular Rudy Baumann, who now left, we can't interview him anymore. Hope he's doing well with his health and his brother. He also had a prominent position in Freefold, something called the Wisdom Council, and in DigiCorp Labs, which he created with a lot of prominent Digibyte members, including Jared Tate as an advisor. He worked also with founding that company through the Chamber of Commerce of Liechtenstein, and then there was a third party that was also owned, and that was LCX, the exchange in Liechtenstein, which is the same exchange that is also listed as partners on the WEF website next to FTX. But we all know what went with FTX. We all know how that went. But they're on there. They're an exchange from 2018. I think they're more compliant than even the MiCA regulation. So they even one up the MiCA regulation in being more strict when you register with them with KYC, but also in anti-money laundering, ways. And they're also part of the SEC versus Wahi court case, which basically determined that Ethereum is a security. And that verdict has actually been cast again by the judge, but no one is talking about it in this space. Apparently nobody cares if Ethereum is a security or a commodity. Everyone should care, but no one listens to the fucking news of the judge themselves. They don't care about law. But if in that court case something weird happened, because all the basically all the accused tokens and of being a security because of insider trading, they weren't listed as defendants. So actually the whole verdict is a rule by decree. This was actually the reason why the SEC had a fallout with the CFTC, and everyone in government no longer trusts the SEC and says that Gary Gensler has overreached as his function as a chairman. And it's directly related to this lawsuit. And LCX is in there too. So I think if that would actually break up, and Ethereum would be something like a utility token, which is a new asset class that the US would have to make, but Europe knows a utility token. We got security, commodity, and utilities. The US doesn't. It only has securities and commodities. You pass the Howey test or you don't. And if they would actually sue the SEC that they weren't listed as defendants, that lawsuit will immediately, be called void. It will be a nothing burger, because any judge that will look at it be done and be like, yeah, this is silly. Doesn't make sense. And then you would probably get LCX as the only exchange that would be compliant in both the EU and the US. And that is kind of interesting as well with its connection to Digibyte. So yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, but that's why I think in a way, and I'm just calling it here on the live stream, I've said it in private many times, but I feel sometimes I feel very strongly that DigiByte looks like
Yeah, I'm gonna go back and re-listen to that. Sorry, I
feel
was
free to
getting a
feel
few
free to
things.
edit out.
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta dip in a little bit, Dave. But
I know, but me
Yeah,
too. But thanks for coming
that's
on, man. It was great.
yeah, absolutely, man. I thank you for helping us beat this up a bit.
anytime,
So,
man. Yeah, you know, you guys know more about DigiByte than I do, but I just know like the strong feeling, you know, something's gonna pop off.
it just
Again.
seems like all roads lead back to DigiByte.
Yeah, you know, like I think a lot of things are gonna do well. I think we're gonna have a full blown. I mean, DigiByte does well in full blown all seasons, and we talked about the percentages. I just think that we're gonna have that mania we never got. BlackRock wouldn't show
Yes.
up if it wasn't gonna happen. I mean, like this is the thing. BlackRock doesn't really get wrecked. They control markets, you know. So they're here now, and I think it's so funny that those Silk Road Bitcoins showed up. That's gonna be a problem moving forward. Is that Satoshi? I can't shake it. The Satoshi Bitcoin.
Pre-mine.
The 1 million.
Yep, I know that's gonna come into play. Someone sent money to it. What was that about? You know, everyone just said, "Oh, it was a mistake." Really?
Well, my thing is I'm waiting for a repeat of 2008, and just because of the
Yeah.
Genesis block, and just another signature, and say, "Told you so."
Yeah,
So,
man. Like that's just doesn't seem. Everyone just likes to assume that he's dead.
I would also like that if that would happen with that told you so, if the banks collapsed again, he would just do an LOL. That would just be phenomenal. Just an LOL. Like, you know, that for me, that's enough as well. It's and or just a sign in, you know, that it just moved. You know, it started to wake up.
And what like a
But yeah,
genius?
that guy's gonna be the richest guy in the world.
What a genius move! I'm gonna make this. I'm gonna tell people about it. They're gonna build it for me. They're gonna pump it up. A whole market will form around it. Then I just show up again.
well, I believe BlackRock is now over 1 million Bitcoin.
Is he gonna buy BlackRock? That would be the killer move. That would be the killer move.
Steak, I think he's higher up than we think. I think this guy is next level. If it's a guy, you know, it could be a bunch of people. It
Could be Jarrett's mother.
It could be Vitalik's mom. I don't know. Like, but what I'm saying is, like, I think it's just too smart. It's so smart. It's like winning the battle without lifting your finger. It's insanely smart. You know, so it'll be interesting to see if that ever moves. I just feel like, you know, those every single time BlackRock needs liquidity, oh, here comes the Silk Road coins that didn't move forever. Just all of a sudden they move out of nowhere.
They just all of a sudden happen to move for the Winklevoss twins as well.
Yeah.
Years ago.
There's a lot of coincidences.
Facebook.
So
Facebook
like
and Winklevoss.
It's conspiratorial until like more of the picture comes into play, right? That's the way it always is, you know, but we'll see. I just think that, you know, I think that profit taking is needed because it just seems too much like the Great Depression, like pre-pump. Because
I don't know. I also don't think not just profit, but if you get a Great Depression in society, because, you know, I work as a social worker, and most people that went to college and to university, I hate to tell it to you, but they're out of touch. And because they just don't know. There's too much of a gap between poverty and people that studied, have a bachelor or a master's degree. And I see a lot of millennials, regardless of what country or what background, but just the fact that you have a higher education, all of you are privileged. And if you look at people actually in poverty, that will hit them, and it's already breaking for them for the past several years. And this on top of that, you might not want to flaunt your money too much. You might want to be smart about that. Just saying, it's you're asking for it. If you're walking around flaunting around necklaces and Rolexes and driving around expensive cars, I get it, but you might want to wait one more year until the dust settles, because some people will be pissed the fuck off. I'll tell you that. They won't be having a good day or a good year.
I think at that point, I'll just snatch Mother Dearest and take her to Singapore, just as a getaway. So, I think
Maybe, but that's something to remember. Like, you guys are in the U.S., and I think your society is more volatile than what we have here in Europe, because we try to level it out a little bit more here. And in the U.S., it's more like, liberty. So it's all everyone fends for themselves. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but that's how it comes across. And it wouldn't surprise me that if you look at the current problems already in American cities, if you put a Great Depression on top of that, you're going to see some really weird behavior.
Well, it's going to end up like Brazil, right? You have excess, and then you have extreme poverty. Like, you know what I mean? That's what you get in capitalist
Like the
countries
favela.
that fall, right? Like, and just like, in Trinidad, like families from Trinidad, beautiful beaches, beautiful hotels, but they're all guarded by barbed wire. There's going to be excess. It's just going to be extreme haves and haves-nots.
Right.
There's going to be no middle class. That's basically the hollowing out of the middle class.
Yeah. So does that mean that if you're in crypto, you're automatically upper class?
I don't think it automatically means that, but you have a better chance.
Yeah.
Because people are still going to get wrecked. Things will happen. And like, especially if they have a what do you call it? They do a reset, and people think that, oh, they're going to forgive my debts. Well, you could have a bail-in, and then they just transfer your debt, and you have no money to pay your debts. Like, see, that's what the book Great Taking talks about. They said it doesn't necessarily mean a debt jubilee. They're just gonna put on the next
take it away, dude. They just take your shit.
That's where it comes from. Back in the day in the U.S., where they said you'd lose a farm, that's because these farmers took loans, and they called the loan immediately. Yep. You call the loan on everyone's mortgage, then what?
Most people wouldn't have a car.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think, and it's hard because it's like, most people can't do that. It's just, it's impossible for most people. It's not a reality. So like, to say pay off your house is like, in Southern California, it's like you'll have whole entire blocks that don't have a real owner. Just go big swaths to BlackRock. It's like no one here owns most of their, I mean, some people do, but not the majority, not even 90%. I mean, 10% probably. So it's really like, it's not the nationalizing of a economy, it's the privatizing of economy. Like, private companies own it now. Because like, look at the Great Depression, they had Hoover towns. Remember that? They had so many homeless encampments that they just put a fence around it and called it its own city. So I think, like, it's very like,
that was really, really, from like a social point of view, like from like, that was one of the worst periods of like labor abuse and slavery, modern day slavery, that lasted for a long time in the US in those areas. Like that was like the most rotten place out there.
They didn't even send police in. Police wouldn't go. So it's kind of like a anything goes area in the middle of a city. Like, like it's, and people think, we don't have to go through that anymore. It's like, we just had like prosperity up to a point. But the second the World Reserve goes away, war comes back, poverty in a big way comes back, struggle comes back. So I think, definitely take care of yourself. And that's something I've been like, not the best at in crypto to crypto cycles. But I think it's coming down to the wire here. Like, don't you feel it? It feels significant. I think everyone feels it. Yeah.
I do. And that's why I say right now, either Bitcoin has to go parabolic or the mining will migrate. And I think it starts with watching the hash of Bitcoin Cash over the next day.
Yeah.
And then watching the hash moving forward.
I mean, Bitcoin Cash its halving is in what? 5 hours? What is it? Countdown. It was 17 like hours and hours ago. It is. Well, okay, that's Bitcoin. 16 days from Bitcoin. I don't care about Bitcoin, but yeah, it's within the day. So interesting times, man. I wish the best for Digibyte though. You guys have really gone through it. You know, Digibyte caught a little traction in 2020, but that was just the case for a lot of 2017 coins that I love very dearly. Just didn't get shine, but I think the shine's coming back.
I agree. I think now it's going to come down to use case and utility.
Yeah. Interesting times, man.
I think a lot of it is lining up. I think the time is now. And it will be these things, these topics that we touched upon will be the things that I'd be looking out for this year at least, and a little bit in next year. And maybe we can add more to the cycle as it develops. There's probably things that I'm missing out as well, like that are right under my nose that I'm just should have bought that, you know.
It's
But
like
so
that
far,
every
I'm pretty
video.
happy.
It's like that every video. It's like, why didn't I say this? Why didn't I say that?
Fair. Yeah, guys, I'm gonna go offline in a bit too, but thanks for inviting me, Dave. Thanks,
Yeah,
Dub,
absolutely.
for the contributions. Appreciate it. Love the
Anytime.
chart too.
Yeah, I try. It gets better over time.
Well, it looks great.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and stop recording. So anyway, look, where can they find you, Dub?
At Dub Digital with 2 U's on X, and then Dub Digital 1 word on YouTube.
Cool. And State?
Yeah, you can find me on chain, but no, at Stake My Claim on X, and yeah, I'll hop around sometimes in spaces. You know, you can find me on Telegram too if you're lucky.
Cool. And well, if y'all see this video, y'all will see where it was broadcasted from. So at Blinddave 2 on Twitter or X, and Blinddave Crypto on YouTube. So anyway, y'all be cool. Go make it a day. Later.
See ya.